Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Bosher, and today I want to show you how to make a steezy hi-hat using the Thor synthesizer in Reason. The track that you just heard was something I made for the tutorial real quick, but I want to show you guys how to synthesize hi-hats from scratch, so let's get started. I do have a new project already created, and for time's sake I did copy and paste the notes from the previous project over to here. And in my new projects rack I do have a new combinator already created, so just right click, create a combinator. In the combinator, let's right click and create an instance of Thor. Click to show the programmer and right click on it to reset the device or initialize patch, depending on what version or Reason you're using. Now first and foremost, when it comes to the pitch bend range, polyphony, and keyboard modes, this is completely up to you. There are no right or wrong answers when it comes to these particular parameters. I do have a couple of notes layered on top of each other in the tutorial notes, so I'm going to keep it exactly how it is with polyphonic mode on. Next, I'm going to bypass the first filter. We're not going to be using any filters for this particular sound, but I do encourage you to experiment them once we're finished making it. Next, I'm going to change the first oscillator from an analog oscillator to an Fmp oscillator. Make sure that the first oscillator is enabled to filter 1 so it goes to the amp. And change the octave to 7. I have explained in a previous tutorial what the Fmp oscillator does, but real quick, it's essentially just a sine wave, and its frequency is dictated by this number and the carrier here. And then the mod is essentially modulating the frequency of the carrier at a specific frequency dictated by the number here. The amplitude, or how loud the frequency modulation, is dictated by this knob here. I'm going to set the carrier to 6, and I'm going to set the mod to 1. I'm going to set the FM amount to 93. You can always hold shift, click and drag to hone in on that specific number. So let's take a listen to what we have so far. As you can hear, it is nothing like what we want it to sound like, so definitely have some work to do. Next, we're going to activate the second oscillator to the first filter. We're going to create an Fmp oscillator here. We're going to set the octave to 5. We're going to leave the carrier at 1, and we're going to set the mod to 9. We're going to set the FM amount to 109, so pretty high. Next, I'm going to activate the sync, and I have explained what the oscillator 2 to oscillator 1 sync is. Essentially, the first oscillator is the master oscillator, the second oscillator is the slave. The first one dictates the pitch and tone, whereas the second dictates the timbral characteristics and its overtones. Next, I'm going to go to the amplitude modulation from oscillator 2 here, and I'm going to set this to 53. It introduces a new type of sideband, and it starts to emulate a little bit of white noise. Now, if we play it out right now, it's not going to sound much different to what we just made, but this is what we have. So as you can hear, it's slightly different. You can hear this synth on top of it now. But what we're going to do is go to the mixer section here, and we're going to set this to 30. Which essentially means that more of oscillator 1 is going to be played out than 2, but 2 still will be there. Next, I'm going to go to the shaper, which is just essentially a saturator in itself, and we're going to set this to sine mode. We're going to set the drive of the shaper to 93. Next, we're going to go to the amp envelope real quick. And this is where we start to emulate real hi-hats. You can make open hi-hats, closed hi-hats, anything you want with these. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to set the attack to 9.0 milliseconds, the decay to 229, sustain all the way down to negative infinity, which means once the note's decay has completed its cycle, there is no volume left over time. And the release dictates essentially if it's going to be an open or closed hi-hat. I'm going to set this to 105. So let's take a listen to what we have now. So right now it's starting to sound like more of a metallic hi-hat, and if you wanted to use that, by all means, go for it. But we still have a few more things to do here. So the next thing we're going to do is head to the mod matrix, and we're going to select the first source here as oscillator 1. The amount will be 100, and we're going to set its destination to oscillator 1's FM amount. Once this oscillator starts to modulate this amount here, it creates another wave of sidebands that really starts to emulate white noise on top of the amplitude modulation here. We're going to go to the second source and set the oscillator 1 100% to oscillator 2's FM amount, so they have the same thing going on essentially. So let's take a listen now. And just like that, it's starting to sound like a real type of hi-hat. One thing I would recommend doing, just real quick, is to just add a scream distortion unit. But if you want to use this patch right here, go for it, and you can make it your own. And like I said previously, I definitely recommend experimenting with the filters, filter envelopes, shaper, different modes, everything like that. And you can really achieve some excellent type of percussion hits with just the FM pair and some modulation. So let's add a screen real quick. Right click on the device, create a screen 4. Right click, initialize patch, and reset the device. And I'm actually going to use a mode that's in the factory bank. We're going to use tape 499. This gives it some nice tape saturation. I'm going to slightly increase the damage by 4 to 39. And again, completely up to preference. And this is what we have now. And just like that, a little tape saturation, a little beefy distortion, and you got yourself some pretty cool hi-hats. So that's it. We're done. I'm going to save the Thor patch here as ABB hi-hat Thor tutorial. And we'll make that available for download for you guys. The link will be in the description. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope we all learned something. And we're all students in this. We always can be learning something. So show me what you did with this, and I'd love to hear it. Love to hear any of the music that you guys send me. So other than that, we're all set. And again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.